I've talked about him before, and you may not know the name James Uthmeier, and that's okay. He's the Florida Attorney General, and before he was the Florida Attorney General, he was Ron DeSantis' chief of staff. He is essentially a DeSantis operation, a vehicle for the anti-woke legal crusade that Trump has nationalized. And last year, Uthmeier accused medical organizations of racketeering because they reached a scientific consensus on gender-affirming care. He's threatened Tampa police over their immigration enforcement policies. He's a man whose hobby is suing things that don't need suing. And this week, he has found his way to the NFL. Uthmeier sent a letter to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell giving the league a deadline until May 1st to suspend the Rooney Rule, or they'll face enforcement action under Florida state law. And for those who don't follow the NFL's internal diversity policies, the Rooney Rule was adopted in 2003 after two black head coaches, Tony Dungy of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Dennis Green of the Minnesota Vikings, were fired, despite them having winning records. The league, after being embarrassed by this obvious racial pattern, created a rule requiring teams to interview at least one minority candidate before filling a head coaching vacancy. They didn't even have to hire them. They just had to interview them. That's the only rule. And you must conduct a job interview before you can reject somebody. Uthmeier's argument is that requiring teams to interview minority candidates constitutes racial discrimination against white candidates who might otherwise be hired immediately. Quote, hiring decisions cannot be based on race. The Rooney Rule mandates race-based interviews and incentivizes race-based decisions. That is discrimination. And I want you to think a little bit about the intellectual honesty of that argument, because there is none. The Rooney Rule does not require teams to hire anyone based on race. It requires them to interview someone, to give them an opportunity. The result of the Rooney Rule's 23 years of existence is, it's mixed. There's currently 3 black head coaches in the NFL, just 3, in a league where 53% of the players are black. This past offseason had 10 head coaching vacancies, 0 were filled by black coaches. The pipeline problem, the actual problem, is that black coaches are not being developed. They're not being promoted through the ranks, and they're not given opportunities at the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator levels that lead to the head coaching jobs. The Rooney Rule, it did not fix that. But when you remove the only rule that requires teams to at least think about race, has nothing to do with solving it. My honest take here, the Rooney Rule, it really isn't a great policy. The owners, they've never used it as intended. It basically became a compliance exercise. Teams call a candidate for a pro forma interview knowing that they've already decided on someone else, and then they get to check the box and move on. And that is not representation. It's just paperwork shuffling. But the answer is not to ditch the rule. The answer is to actually invest in the coaching pipeline itself, to fund development programs, to support black coaches at lower levels, to create real pathways that reflect the racial makeup of the players. Fix the damn pipeline. 53% of your workforce is black, and you only have 3 black head coaches. That's a structural problem that an interview requirement alone was never going to solve. But that is not what Uthmeier is proposing. He's not proposing investment in coaching development. He's not proposing anything that will help fix the problem. Instead, he's threatening to sue the NFL for requiring interviews. He's using the language of civil rights enforcement to eliminate the last vestige of any accountability in NFL hiring. And he's doing it as a MAGA culture war move, not as a serious equity proposal. And here's the other thing I need you to know about James Uthmeier. He makes $140,000 a year as Florida's Attorney General, which he has noted publicly was actually a pay cut from his previous job as DeSantis' chief of staff. So what happened? DeSantis gave him a side gig. The state-run University of Florida hired him as an adjunct law professor. How much work does he have to do? 2 hours of class time a week. And for that, he gets $100,000 a year. which makes him the highest paid adjunct professor at the UF Law School in at least 25 years by at least $20,000. His adjunct salary is 8 times the median adjunct salary nationally. Combined, he makes $240,000 of state money a year. Almost $100,000 more than Ron DeSantis himself. And so when he was asked to explain his $100,000 part-time teaching salary, Uthmeier said, and this sucks to hear, when you have a growing family and 3 kids, you've got to look for other ways to keep the lights on and put food on the table. It's a man who's making $240,000 a year from taxpayers. And he's describing his financial situation as keeping the lights on. And the class he's teaching, I'm not making this up, the implications of executive overreach. Fitting. The man who's telling the NFL that they've overreached in requiring a job interview is teaching a class on executive overreach while collecting $100,000 a year for 2 hours of work a week that he needed because $140,000 a year wasn't enough to keep the lights on. Meanwhile, yeah, look, the Rooney Rule, it's not enough. But Uthmeier's solution makes it worse. And this guy who's making $400 an hour to explain it to law students, he's explaining why the government shouldn't overreach. That's the guy who's threatening to sue the NFL for holding job interviews. That's your free state of Florida. And independent media here in Florida covers this and stories like this because no one else can and no one else will. Your likes, your shares, your comments, your subscriptions help keep these stories in public view. So do me a favor, hit that subscription button, hit that notification icon, and I will see you in more of our videos.